Hello, this is Mayor Chris Bollwage. Welcome to another edition of Our City. On May 26th at 4 p.m., I'm going to meet with the Mayor's Youth Council at the Elmore Library around 6 p.m. I'm also going to attend the 313 Ancestors Speak. It's a fundraising gala at the Snyder Academy. For more information, you can contact the Reverend Dr. Wanda Lundy at 201-970-3337. This is in respect to the graveyard located next to the Presbyterian Church, where over 300 African American slaves and free African Americans were buried without any markers. There are a group of people identifying these names, so hopefully, in concert with the City of Elizabeth, we eventually can pay the proper respects to Elizabethans who were buried in unmarked graves. If you need more information concerning these events or any other events, please call our Public Information Office at 908-820-4124. Now, on May 19th and May 20th, the Historical Society of Elizabeth, New Jersey, partnered not only with my office, but the Public History Department of the Elizabeth Public Library, the Elizabeth Board of Education, and they conducted an interactive forum with social studies students of the Elizabeth Public Schools. In this opening of the show, I'm going to be joined by Michael Simon of the Historical Society, who is the secretary, and Sebastian Prado, the Historical Society treasurer. Michael, Sebastian, welcome to the show. Please tell us what the Elizabeth Forum and why does the Historical Society want to conduct not only this forum, but more in the future.
Thank you for having us on. Mayor Bollwage, the forum is one of the centerpieces of our organization, and as well as keeping the upkeep of the Belcher Mansion and the Bonnell House on East Jersey Street. Every year we put on a forum in which we take an aspect of the city, either a neighborhood or memorials, and we dive into it and try to give a deeper perspective, something that hasn't been written before about either Bay Way, Old Elizabethport, Broad Street. And in the past 2 years, we've been focused on the pandemic and how it has affected the city of Elizabeth and all the institutions in Elizabeth as well.
Sebastian?
Thank you, Mayor, for having us today. So the Historical Society, throughout the years, as Mike mentioned, has recorded these parts of our community and our city. And we want to continue in doing research on every part of the city. That way, future generations know more about the city that we have today.
So Mike and Sebastian, you were both involved with Ken Ward when we were doing oral histories of neighborhoods, as you explained it, Mike and Sebastian. So what was specifically involved in the preparation and research for this forum?
The focus on this forum, oh, go ahead, Sebastian, I'm sorry.
So what was involved was first deciding on a topic. As Mike mentioned, we have been focusing on the pandemic for the past years. And next, our step was to contact our partners, as you mentioned, the City of Elizabeth, the Board of Education, to work with them and have our guest speakers that we had this year. So yeah, that's basically what was important.
So Mike, researching the history of Elizabeth, is it as important today as it was, say, 100 years ago?
I think it's always important because the lens in what we view history often changes. As scholarship continues to revisit historical events and different changes in American history, we often look at it through new perspectives and through a new lens. So I think it's very important for people to study the history of Elizabeth because it was founded in 1664. As far as American history goes, it was here through the colonial period. It was established through Revolutionary period. It was a very important player in the Industrial Revolution and the World War I era, World War II era, Vietnam era, civil rights, and now continuing into the modern era. Elizabeth is always at the forefront. So there's something always interesting to study, particularly with the waves of immigration that we've had through the history, the hundreds years history that we've had.
Sebastian, Michael just mentioned immigration. So why is it important to share with the students the things that you know as an immigrant to our country?
So we want to share with the students because mainly in the city of Elizabeth, there are two groups of students. Kids that were born here and were raised with the history and culture of this country, but also we have the immigrants, kids that come to this country every day. So we want to unite them in a topic that they can learn more about every year. So with the people that were raised here, we want to expose them to the communities that are coming to the city. That way we can get together. And to the people that are coming to the city, we want to show them what is here, the history of the city, what was here before them, and how they can continue that legacy.
Mike, what is the title of this year's forum?
The title this year is Historical Intersections from Pandemic to Endemic.
And the forum preparation and research, what relates to today in 2022 in our city and region? We're now in the endemic stage. So how have you made that transformation?
Well, Your Honor, I believe that the important transformation that has to be focused on, how we shifted from the pandemic to endemic, was how much technology was thrust in all industries, particularly Zoom. I focused on the courts and the legal system, which is what I do for a living, litigation. And it has really changed the way the practice of law operates. There will always be an importance for in-person trials and in-person proceedings, and that can never be replaced. But certainly Zoom has allowed us to not having, it limited our travel. It keeps litigants at home just for quick appearances, and it's allowed us to be a lot more efficient. So I think that this change from pandemic to endemic and the technological advances that have occurred is making us more efficient, and probably wouldn't have happened if not for the pandemic.
You really summed it up too, because this TV show used to be in person and now we do it by Zoom and it comes across just as well.
Absolutely.
So my notes say that there are 3 words that you can describe the forum message that you want students to internalize. What are those 3 words?
Embrace the change.
Well, it's good 3 words.
Yeah, you can't stop it, so you might as well embrace it and learn how to live with it.
So Sebastian and Mike, I want to thank you for your extensive efforts to make the forum as significant as it was, and for your many contributions to the civic fabric of our city. I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time to both join us on the show.
Thank you as well, Mayor. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
So in our final segment, I'm happy to have the forum moderator and facilitator, who is Stan Neron, the Director of Recreation and also a Commissioner on the Elizabeth Board of Education, and he's joined by Krishna, who is the Director of Health and Human Services. So directors, why is it important for Elizabeth students to participate in this forum?
I think it's extremely important. Thank you for having us, Mayor. I think it's extremely important because, education is ongoing. As we experience what we just experienced in the past 2 years, there have been many changes in our society, and they need to know how to move forward, and they need to understand the resilience of all the people here in the United States that have experienced, and not only the United States, but the world, how we were able to conquer a lot of these challenges. And I think through discussion, through these forums, we learn more, we educate ourselves, and we prepare ourselves for a better tomorrow and prepare ourselves for the worst, that may be ahead of us. If something like this were to happen again, they would understand how to prepare and deal with the adversities and the challenges that exist. Looking at my personal life, I've lost a lot of people during the pandemic, and, there was a major mental health impact that has really hit the entire community, that we all have to deal with it. So one of the best ways to deal with it is to really talk about it and have forums like this. And I think it's been very beneficial for the students here in the city of Elizabeth.
Director Garlick, your interaction with the students and the audiences to know about our city and region regarding the importance historically of public and civic health. What are your comments, Director?
Yeah, I think I would echo what Director Neron said, that, one of the major messages that I wanted to make sure that the young people heard was that there was a mental health impact to this. And there is intense anxiety that people experienced, not only during the pandemic, but continue to experience as the world begins to reopen, because the world has changed, right? So we're operating under very different rules right now. What does it look like to travel? What's the anxiety associated with that? What does it look like to go to the theater, having to wear a mask when you're there? What does that feel like? When I'm out with my friends, when I choose to be in larger groups versus smaller groups of friends, when my friends are losing their loved ones and grandparents. And, so it's been a huge impact on our society. I think that embrace the change is a great message. We should probably get that put on a billboard somewhere, because the reality is that I think people are still struggling with that, right? People keep saying, when are we going to get back to normal? And, my message to everyone is that this is our normal, right? This is it. We're here. It's an endemic, and it's here to stay, right? At this time, we have to learn to live with COVID-19.
Director, not only in the students and the explaining to them, but you've done some programs here in the city of Elizabeth in working with the Board of Education in hiring some counselors and also people available for any kind of therapy that they may need during this pandemic. Talk to us a little bit about those contracts you initiated.
Yeah, so absolutely. I think it's amazing that we have a city government that saw the forethought to be able to offer counseling to our residents in the city. So we have free counseling available to any City of Elizabeth resident. I believe it's over the age of 13. And it's virtual counseling. So it is available. The information for Talkspace is available on the City of Elizabeth website. You go on, it recognizes the zip code to make sure that you are registering from Elizabeth, and you are able to engage in either video chat with a counselor or in text, because we know that our young people like to text, right? We're in a text society now. So you can text message with your counselor. It allows you to choose your counselor. So you actually read profiles and to decide which counselor you want, what language you want the counselor to speak. Male, female, what gender. So it's a great service that's available to our residents. And I can tell you from the reports that we've been receiving from Talkspace, people are taking advantage of it.
That's good to know. So Director Neron, as a member of the Board of Education, what do you think the students learned from the forum? What do you think they take away from this forum?
Well, I think we took a really good deep dive. I moderated the panel, and, we got various perspectives, especially really defining pandemic, endemic, and epidemic, and really giving them the different definitions of, what the three are. And I think they got to understand, strategy, how to deal with it, what's important, why the vaccines were important, why the quarantine was important, and the various stages that, happened during the pandemic, and from that, they were able to discuss amongst themselves and really come up with some questions and strategies as to what does it look like moving forward. So I think at the end of the day, a huge learning opportunity for our students and even our instructors to really create an avenue of dialogue for them. And
what impressed you most about the forum, Stan? Was it the students' reaction? Was it the preparation of the panelists? Tell me what impressed you the most.
I think all aspects, the fact that we're doing this Zoom and that they're tuning in, that's very impressive. The fact that they're engaging with us and really participating in the surveys, we're getting a lot of feedback from that itself. And the fact that we're able to even use technology to really start, this is a new phase in education, this use of technology. I mean, a sidebar and a joke, I remember being a kid and watching the Jetsons and how everybody would communicate on a large screen and would, go according to their day. And this is how they managed. And this is how we're working now. We're working with Zoom, using these technologies. We have Microsoft Meetup, and, we're using that technology. So the use of technology and the fact that it's effective and we're able to get the message out is awesome. And the fact that we're all able to manage all of this and actually put a forum together, plan it, and execute it without all of us having to be in the same place at the same time is phenomenal. And I think the students get a kick out of it as well.
Director Garlick, you and Director Neron both have extensive experience in an executive position, and during this pandemic, it's been difficult. Why give your time and wisdom to the forum? What do you get out of it?
Yeah, I was sitting here when Stan was speaking, when Director Neron was speaking, and I was thinking about how one of the things that motivated me to participate in this is that I wanted to make sure that students were aware of a whole different set of career choices that are available to them, right? And that they could be inspired to see that there are, that the public health field is something that is very open and available and diverse. And, I think about, as the Director of Health and Human Services, I often joke about every day when I come to work, it's something different, right? There's not a lot of consistency in what I'm doing, but always being introduced to, some new situation that the city is being presented with that we then have to problem solve as a team and figure out how to deal with. And I think it's one of the amazing things about our city, but also about, just being in the public health field and being able to just learn so much and have opportunities that maybe as a young person, you don't think about as a career choice. Like, who inspects the restaurants to make sure that they're safe for us to eat in, right? Like, what happens when there is a pandemic? Like, who responds to that? And not knowing what's happening behind the scenes, and that you have all of these partners, business, government, health officials, working together to try to solve the problems that each of us are facing every day. And so hopefully this was an introduction to them that these are career opportunities and we're available. The director's here, I'm sure the mayor, to talk about, what those careers are and how you can be prepared to enter into that area.
So Director Neron, we have a few minutes left, and in the beginning of the show, I talked about the 313 project, and you've been active in putting that together and working with the city, as Director Garlick has been. Tell us how we're doing. Tell us a little bit of the background, because clearly until we talked about it, I was not aware of that issue or the unmarked graves in that location.
Well, the 313 project is another project that I think the students of the city of Elizabeth and the people of our residents here are going to be intrigued by and learn a lot by and be inspired by. Again, 313 free and enslaved Africans were buried there, in the early part of the founding of this city. And they were never recognized. They don't have tombstones. They, through our research, we found that there may be one or two that do have marked graves that were buried with their slave masters. And on the tombstone, there's an insignia up there that says CO, which stands for colored. So through the research, we've been able to find some of the names of the people that are buried. We believe there's actually 384 people buried there, and we have come together, the entire city, the health department, Department of Recreation. We've partnered with the county. We've applied for grants. We've also partnered with the Elizabeth Police Department in raising funds and galvanizing the necessary dollars to not only build a monument to recognize those that are buried there, but also build a museum there that will create an opportunity for hundreds of years to come for young people and families alike to be able to visit the Snyder Academy, understand the entire history of not only the European settlers, but also the African settlers here in our community, and tell a long history of the people who have migrated here to Elizabeth and immigrated to the city of Elizabeth and their history, and allow for their voice to be heard. You know, the project is called Ancestors Speak, and it is simply that. The ancestors are speaking through this monument, through this recognition. And this upcoming Thursday, we will be able to do a gala to continue to raise the funds to erect the monument, and also continue on restoring the gravesite in general, and building that museum. So it's an exciting project, and I think it's going to be extremely beneficial, and it's going to be monumental, not only in the tri-state area, but nationally. And I think when people learn about the history of Elizabeth and the city of Elizabeth being one of the first capital of the state of New Jersey, that we were able to do this, I think people around the world will hear about this.
I want to thank you, Director Neron, for that explanation, as well as all the time and the work you're doing in trying to make it a success, and especially your contributions to the forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Director Garlick, I also want to thank you for your efforts, not only in the forum, but your work during the pandemic and now endemic. And I want to thank Michael Simon of the Historical Society, who is the secretary, who's done a great job, and Sebastian Prado, who's been on our show numerous times as a treasurer of the Historical Society, by keeping Elizabeth in the forefront, by remembering our history to embrace the change. This is Mayor Chris Bollwage. We'll see you next week on another edition of Our City.